All right. Welcome, everybody. South Weber City Council meeting of January 12th, 2021, brand new year. It is 6 p.m. and all council members are in attendance. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance by Councilman Halverson and then a prayer by Councilwoman Alberts.
Please stand. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear kind Father in heaven, we are grateful that we are able to gather tonight as a city council and as citizens and as the city as a whole to discuss the needs of our community. We are grateful for all those that are giving service to us at this time, and grateful for our paramedic services and our emergency personnel, and grateful for all the hard work that they put into it. We pray, Father, at this time during this pandemic, that those that have been impacted by it, whether that be physical or emotional or mentally, that thy spirit might be upon them to offer them comfort and help and healing during these times. And pray that we will have thy wisdom with us this night and thy spirit, and help us to be able to make the best decisions for our city. And we're grateful for this opportunity. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Council Members Halverson and Alberts. We'll begin with a Corona update. Davis County hit a peak a couple of weeks ago, and then they've been continuing stable at that peak. The South Weber City has not. They've actually been continuing to go up. We've had 576 total cases, 82 active this week. And actually, South Weber City is the top active case rate per 100,000 residents in Davis County. So not something we really want to brag about, but that's how things are right now. Governor Cox came out last week with, he issued an executive order that all vaccines for long-term care facilities, care facilities be completed by January 23rd. 40% of deaths in Utah are long-term care patients. And so this is where he wants to hit first. If a person is positive in the past 6 weeks, they won't be vaccinated so that they can utilize that vaccine more effectively. Organizations will be given a short window to disperse vaccines, and if they're not dispersed by then, they are taken away and used elsewhere. On January 11th, teachers and frontline school staff can be vaccinated, the most vulnerable first. On January 18th, they're hoping that ages 70 plus can be vaccinated, and scheduling is planned to begin as soon as Friday. You just need to call your local health department to set up an appointment, and they hope to complete the 70 plus age group by the end of February. The state has received 5,000 antibody treatments, and these doses will go to long-term care facility patients. They can be administered when an outbreak at a facility occurs, and they're distributed via infusion if the patient has pre-hospital symptoms. So they're not super serious yet. And that is my report for coronavirus. We will move to public comment. Please come to the pulpit, state your name and address. Please speak for 3 minutes or less. Do not remark from the audience. And we'll go ahead and start with in this room, and then I think we have a couple online as well. So.
Now from the new position here, Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. The first thing is a general comment, public comment. During the planning commission meeting. Let's try that a little bit. Maybe I'll do it that way. Can you hear it? Is that better? Okay. During the planning commission meeting of 17 December 20, agenda item number 6, was public hearing and action on preliminary site plan improvements and amended development agreement for the lofts at Deer Run, located at approximately, well, it's on the frontage road, close enough. Based upon some of these discussions, I had a question and conducted additional research regarding these parcels and found out that at least one, if not two of the parcels are considered to be within, typo, sorry. As such, the proposed lots buildings should have the C, and R requirements for Deer Run Estates attached, enforced on that portion of the lot's development. A copy of the existing applicable C, and R's, covenants, conditions, and restrictions should be included with the plot plans filed in the Davis County Recorder's Office for Deer Run Estates. Item 2. This is just a suggestion to the City Council to, if you haven't already, please look at the Planning Commission meeting. At that time, I submitted comments on a line by line basis for their for that packet. Second thing is agenda item 10, comments on contract for purchase of real property for future public works facility. Starts on page 89 of 99 in the packet. Item 1, I've been asked questions regarding the second paragraph of the agenda item introduction, page 89, and the information that follows. Typically, these presentations have essentially a bid/cost comparative chart for consideration/evaluation. Could someone on the council please explain to the South Weber City residents to clarify why this is not shown in the presentation? Item 2, page 90 of 99. In the whereas, number 3, what factors were used in this evaluation? i.e., A, size required for the public works facility lot. Why does South Weber City require 12.15 acres? A comparison of nearby city shows that Clearfield City has 7.745 square miles, and their public works department is 6.26 acres. That's 1.5 times what is proposed for South Weber City. Layton City has 22.65 square miles to be serviced, and its public works facility is 10.15 acres. And South Weber City right now has a size of 4.67 square miles, and the proposed is to purchase 12.15 acres for a public works facility. This is substantially more than Layton City, which is 5 times our size. Total cost of property. Was consideration given to purchasing a smaller piece of property, even if it were more expensive per acre, to properly size the amount of land necessary for the public works facility? If approximately 7 to 8 acres were purchased, even at a higher cost per acre, it could possibly be less expensive than the $600,000 currently proposed. Such a reduced cost purchase would leave additional funds that could be used towards the actual construction of the public works facility. Item C, location of the public works facility. Locating the public works facility at the west end of South Weber City will increase the overall cost of operations for the public works department. This is because any action performed by the department would necessarily a return to the west end of the city and thus increase the mileage driven. A centralized location would cut these costs. Another question that I was asked is, what are the potential impacts to the proposed public works facility when it is being located within the Hill Air Force Base easement? Could someone on the council explain to South Weber City residents to clarify why this is not an issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Wipe down.
Thank you. Michael Poff, 154 East Harper Way, South Weaver. I wanted to take a few minutes and speak to the property acquisition for the property adjacent to the soccer complex. I am in the vicinity. Now, I've been in your guys' position before, and I'm not trying to discredit your guys' position, but I do want to make a couple of points here. I know that citizen input or perception is a little consequence at the issue at hand, because we wouldn't be to this point if the issue were not more than just a formality before the council right now. But perceived perception out there is that the city may have been a little disingenuous. In November, the city approved the general plan, took comments from citizens from all across the valley, roads, trails, and zoning. What do we want to see in these areas, the city asked. And nowhere in the discussion on the general plan that the city was considering moving the public works to that end of the city. In December, the city considered a CUP, conditional use permit, of the property owners of the property in a public meeting, considering requirements that for any other developer would be mandatory, yet things like cost of those requirements, improvements were all addressed, considerations that many developers are not afforded as they develop within the city. But nowhere in the discussion was there made a conflict of interest that the city was considering entering into Thank you. Entering into a contract with the property owners. I'm sure that the city did everything by the book. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. However, the perception that the city has been negotiating with a property owner to purchase property, all the while the property owner was petitioning the city for a conditional use permit, does not create very good optics. Please note though, once a property acquisition is completed, that all protected communications may be subject to grammar requests. In practice, the state is somewhat undecided as to how it addresses the issue, but I would ask that when all is said and done, that we not find where the citizens are being told one thing and that the other things were being done behind the scenes. That happened with South Bench Drive, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again. I wanted to speak a little bit about city structures. As a conditional use, the city has the ability to put city structures within any zone, but let's look at the spirit of the law. Allowing a pump house or a transfer station in the middle of a residential area is a bit more reasonable than allowing an industrial complex to be built in a residential area. Building structures, storages of dangerous chemicals, and important issues that need proper consideration. Please don't just say because we can put it in there, we're going to. We should go through the same process that would require of any other commercial complex. Let's do it the right way. Let's make it look nice. Let's make it function properly. Landscaping is not a punishment to a developer. It's there for a reason. It serves as a buffer, a protection to the neighborhood, a transition flow. Let's make sure that we do not make shortcuts in the area of landscaping. Let's not build a tin building. Let's not invest in something that is let's invest in something that's visually appealing, that will last, and that's better for the community. Safety, let's make sure that when it comes to safety, the city invests in the best technology to make sure that we don't jeopardize the safety of the community in that particular area. One off the subject note, when you review agenda, and I apologize because I know I understand why it's there, but it's hard because when you review an agenda and then try to go back and find where it is, if there's a place on the agenda for a closed public meeting, you think, okay, that really took place. But in some situations, it's on the agenda where it's not. And I know there was some discussion about keeping it on the agenda, so if you needed to have one, you could have one. But in the effort, I guess, to be transparent, let's not put it on the agenda if we don't plan on having a closed public meeting, so we don't dig through minutes we don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
I don't think I'll have to move that mic.
My name is Tammy Long, 2178 East Deer Run Drive, South Weaver, Utah. And I'm here also to address the purchase of this new piece of property for the Public Works facility. The massive size of it is what I have a big question on, because we don't need one that big, even at full build out compared to, I mean, Layton City has a smaller one, and Layton City is huge compared to South Weaver. So what I would like to know is if you guys could address the public and tell them what your intent is for the remainder of that property, because I don't think it should be used as a public works facility. Thank you for adjusting that so people don't see me. So that like, people can know what your plans are for that piece of property, because it clearly isn't just for a public works facility. And Sunset City, their public works facility is also on the same property as their city office building. And they only have 4.194 acres for their public works and their city office building. So that's not nowhere near comparison to 12 and a half acres of property. So I would like you to address the residents and tell us what your intent is for the rest of that property before it gets purchased, because that's called transparency. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, Tom. Any further public comment in the room? Okay, then let's move to our online comment.
Lisa, are they on? One of those that registered emailed me right before the meeting started and said that they would just watch online, that they did not have a public comment. The other looks like they are not online yet. So no online public comment at this point.
Okay.
There was one submitted via email. She just asked that I bring it to your attention. I don't know if you got it.
Did you get that, Lisa? Okay, we'll add that to the minutes. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Hearing no further public comment, many of these questions I think we will be addressing, but we'll wait until that time on the agenda. And our next item is an audit report by Keddington and Christensen. At the end of each fiscal year, management is responsible for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the city's financial statements. The South Weaver City Council has contracted the services of Keddington and Christensen LLC to perform an independent audit of the statements and report their findings to the City Council. This audit involves performing procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. The procedures selected depend on the auditor's judgment, including the assessment of the risks of a material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error. Okay. And now we will return the time over to, who do we turn it to, Dave?
This is Gary with Keddington and Christensen.
Okay, Gary, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for letting me present tonight. What you read there was very accurate and good words for everybody to know. Just so they remember that our fiscal year that we're auditing is between July 1 and June 30th, and that's the fiscal year of the city. In fact, it's the same fiscal year for all cities, so that they can be comparable. What I need to do tonight as part of our the presentation is to tell the council how the audit went. You've had the numbers, and you have the financial statements, and so and those are really the responsibility of the city. My responsibility is to audit those numbers to make sure that they're in compliance with the accounting standards, so that that all the cities are comparable that way. And so tonight, just to let you know, some of the areas that we look at is, like you mentioned there, that we look at the internal controls, we look at the cash disbursement controls, the cash receipts, the payroll, and especially the financial close, and we'll get to that one. And then we also look at, some of the, we have some fraud procedures. As you're aware, some of you council members received questionnaires from us that ask you about fraud. We ask management as well. We ask some of the employees as well. And so to make sure that we've covered everywhere, at least all the different areas of employment there at the city. We also have to, as you know, that we have to look at some of the state laws and regulations that the state auditors have us look at, and we have to look at different groups, and we'll get to that here in just a minute, but just so that you know that we have to look at all these different ones that the state auditors have us give us a list of compliance requirements we have to look at. So now to go to how the audit went. The audit, we didn't have any unadjusted entries, meaning that we didn't find any area that the management didn't agree with and that we made some adjustments. So we don't have any disputes in that. And also we didn't have any situations where that we came to a disagreement where we had to get another CPA firm involved or any of those kind of things. We didn't have any disputes with management over any of the accounting principles and how they were supposed to be applied. What we did have, though, is one thing is we did have some difficulties in actually performing the audit this year, which we haven't had in the past, and there's probably lots of reasons for it. But this year, the records when we came into audit weren't as prepared as good as they have been in the past, and which required us to make about 25 entries to get the books in compliance. And one of the main areas where we really had to work hard and do a lot more work was in the capital asset area. Now that area is all your fixed assets, such as your cars, your property, your roads, all your infrastructure, all those kind of areas. Because of the South Bench Drive project, which was rather large and rather complicated, it took us quite a bit more time to be able to get through that. You can imagine the amount of invoices we had to go through. We had 3 different funding sources that we had to deal with, and it's a pretty complex thing to actually come in and have to learn about audit, look at all the invoices, make sure it was all correct. You also, as a city, accepted 4 different subdivisions this year, which we then have to go through and make sure that those all get onto the books correctly. So typically it takes us probably 3 to 4 days to go through that. And this year it took us about 2 weeks to get through that because of the amount of things that you have actually done, like say again, with all those invoices, the complexities of it all. It wasn't that the records weren't there, there were just lots to get through. Now you have the audit report. If you, you'll see that on our opinion is a clean opinion is what we call. So which means that we say that these financial statements and the numbers and the footnotes related to those numbers are in compliance with the government accounting standards. But they're, we say materially because we don't look at every transactions. You don't want us in your place that long and you don't want to pay that much. It'd be an awful lot to have to go through every transaction. So we do a lot of sampling, we do a lot of testing and things like that to make sure that the balances are correct. And our opinion says that they are materially correct as they are presented in that report. The findings, if you want to jump to those, that'll be on starting on page 53. And our first finding is over the internal controls related to financial close. And you'll see a list there of the areas that we had to adjust. As we came in, we needed to make adjustments to that whole list of areas right there. And what we're just suggesting is that the city take some more time to make sure go over those once again at to make sure that all those balances are correct. I'm in Mark's position. I'm a finance director for 7 different governments. I know how difficult it is to always get it, and especially during these times where it's sometimes it's more difficult to do to get the financial records in place with this COVID and people not working than it might seem. But we suggest that they just look through those a little more careful to make sure that we don't have to make so many entries. The other findings, we have 2 more, and that's related to those state compliance. The Open and Public Meetings Act, as you're aware that once the minutes have been approved, the city has 3 business days to get those minutes posted to the public notice website so that the citizens can see those minutes. And we selected the November 19th city council minutes, and they were approved on the 10th, but they weren't uploaded to the website until January 29th. So it took a little bit of time to get that up. So we just recommend that you try to make sure that those get up on time so that there's not any issues there. The other issue we ran into, get my screens right anymore, is that there was a new compliance that they asked us to test on the court system. And it was kind of interesting because what they've had us do now is go in and look at what is being coded to a specific account, not in your general ledger, but in the court system. And they wanted us to look at court costs specifically. And they have a very strict definition of what can go in there. And we found that some attorneys' fees had been misclassified into there. Not that they were anything wrong with that, it's just not in the wrong category there. And so we needed to report to the state and to you that those were input into the wrong area. We've already talked to the court clerk. She knows what to do, and she's already got all that fixed. That's not going to be an issue. But those are the findings and the report on how the audit went. Does the council have any questions for me or any comments?
Any comments? I think we're good, Gary. Thank you for coming and presenting to us tonight. And thank you, Mark McCray and Paul, for all that you do to keep our finances in good order. Mark, I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments, if you had anything to say, or if we just...
I'd just comment that we appreciate having the auditors in, and I've always felt that nobody is perfect, and if we go through and they don't find some way for some finding and ways that we can improve, then they may not be looking at things as well as they could. The 3 findings, as you will note in the audit report, we have put steps in place to ensure that those things do not happen again. As far as being the finance director, I have put hard deadlines. Instead of a soft deadline asking staff to get everything to me, we've put a hard deadline for the future so that everything is in place and we will have more time, whether it's COVID or COVID is gone, to look at all the records a little more closely. And the biggest one was, as Gary pointed out, South Bench Drive. It turned out to have a lot of areas that we haven't addressed before, as far as revenues and accounts receivable and a lot of different things. And we worked through those, and I'm happy to present that audit report. The finance statements, as they are prepared, and then Gary's part was to audit those and to do those. But I have a great staff, and I appreciate all the work that they do, because I don't do it alone. It's my staff that does a lot of the work in keeping the records where they're supposed to be, and letting me know of inconsistencies or things that they spot. And I'm really appreciative of the staff and people that I work with at the city.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think I can speak for the council and thank you and your staff for doing such a great job. You know, they're, like you said, when they're searching for details, we'd probably be disappointed if there wasn't some findings of some things that can be improved. But I know that every year you guys have a great report, and we've never, since I've been in here, I haven't seen any problems in that respect. So I'm grateful for all that you're doing. Appreciate it. And thank you, Gary. Thank you for your presentation, and we appreciate you coming to our meeting tonight. So
Thank you,
for
Mayor.
all your work.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to item number 6, introduction of City Planner Sherry Phippen. We're excited to announce Sherry as our new city planner. She has hit the ground running and is fitting in nicely. And I would like to turn the time over to her for just a minute to introduce herself.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the mayor said, my name is Sherry Phippen. I have been a city planner for close to 14 years. I worked for Nibley City in Cache Valley for about 9.5 years. I have a background in city administration. I have a master's degree in public administration. For the past year, I have been working not in local government. I actually work for your congressional representative. I worked for Congressman Bishop for a year. And then when Congressman Moore was elected, he opted to keep me on. So that's my day job. And I am really excited about the opportunity to do this on the side. I've been really impressed with everybody that I've met so far. I'm excited that I'm finally moving down here. So no more driving through Sardine Canyon, coming to and from work. But yeah, I am really excited to be here. I'm excited to be where I can hear the jet noises from the Air Force Base. I'm not kidding about that either. I'm an Air Force brat, so this way. I'm an Air Force brat, so I was born on an Air Force base and I grew up on Air Force bases. So that sound to me is something I've heard my whole life. So yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me.
Wow. We're excited to have you, Sherry, and I've had the opportunity of working with her already, and she's, you know, like I said, hit the ground running. She's doing a great job and has great comments and really knows her stuff. So as you can imagine, it's kind of crazy for Sherry right now with working for Congressman Moore.
Yeah.
And also our city now and moving. That's that's a lot on our plate, but any way we can help you out, we would love to, and we're just glad to have you here.
No, I really appreciate the flexibility that David has given me and the support that those of you guys that I've talked to have given me, and the patience while I get this all sorted out and get moved. But that's happening this weekend, so I can breathe out a little bit.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Welcome, Sherry.
Appreciate it.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the December 15th, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there comments or questions on the agenda? And do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second. Ha.
Okay. All right. Any further comment? And we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the sale of approximately, I gotta put my 1,830 square feet, parcel 1322000105 of real property to Ron and Karen Anderson. Ron and Karen Anderson presented a proposal on October 27th, 2020 to purchase vacant land adjacent to their property. The land is part of the Canyon Meadows Park and was not slated to be developed. The council was open to the idea with verification the offer was fair market value. City Manager David Larson requested confirmation from a property acquisition representative who agreed the price was fair. A public hearing must be held for public input before the sale can take place. And so, do I have a motion to open public hearing?
Mayor, I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Have a
Seconded.
second? Okay, Councilman Halverson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now open for a public hearing. Okay.
Lisa jumped right up to make public comment now.
We didn't have anyone online, did we, Dave?
No.
Portion. Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is now closed. We will move to Resolution 21-01, contract for sale of real property to Ron and Karen Anderson. Are there comments or questions from the council? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-01?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve resolution 21-01.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further comment? And we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you. Item number 10 is Resolution 21-02, contract for purchase of real property for future public works facility. The past 2 fiscal years, the City Council has budgeted to purchase property for a future public works facility due to the state of our current facility. Property throughout the city was identified and evaluated, resulting in a list of ranked properties that could meet the city's current and future needs. Once evaluated and ranked, city staff has approached those property owners within the city to find a willing seller. The property purchase contract before the City Council for ratification tonight represents significant work and many hours to ultimately come to an agreement to purchase property. So I'd like to have somebody, a representative, is it Brandon? Come to the pulpit and
Depends on your
answer,
question.
answer any questions. Okay, are there questions or comments? I guess he's going to come around.
Lisa can move the camera so that it just comes over here. If
That's pretty sweet. Okay. Okay, questions from the council?
Well, I don't know if I have questions for you, Brandon, but maybe more some comments and some clarifications, and you can jump in anytime. But to address some of the concerns is why such a large property? Why in that zone or that area? Why in the Hill Air Force Base easement? Yes, 12 acres is more than the actual public works facility needs. I believe we actually need for the public works facility 5 acres. Or
We were shooting for 5 to 8.
5 to 8, somewhere in there. As we looked at all of the different properties, some were not big enough, some were way too expensive, considerably more expensive. If you know what the going rate of real estate is in South Weaver currently, if we were to buy a current residential piece, it would be considerably more than double what we're currently paying for that piece of property. Let's see, I believe someone addressed why would we put this in the residential area? Well, that piece of property, if I am remembering correctly, is not zoned as a residential piece, nor can it have a piece of residential on it, correct?
Correct.
It is one of the uses that is allowed in that restricted zone, I believe. What else? I don't know if we have any other intentions for the rest of the property. There are other needs in the city, but I don't think we will develop more than we're needed for the public works facility. So
I'm sure there's other comments. That's what I wrote down. And to the one resident's comment that was emailed in, the access for the public works trucks and stuff will come off of South Weber Drive. That is one of the requirements we had for the property, so that the trucks and stuff would not be coming in and out of a residential neighborhood. There is access there if we have to, which helps with some safety issues, but the main access will be on South Weber Drive. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Blair. Other comments?
I have a few. Mine.
Okay, Haley.
I just want to thank the residents that asked questions. This is a great opportunity for us to help clarify and, you know, fill up any holes that there may have been. So I appreciate all these questions. As far as why we're moving it onto the west end, currently it's right in the middle of the city and it is in a residential area. So these trucks that are coming and going, you know, 4 in the morning, it's less than maybe 40 feet from somebody's back windows currently where it's at right now. So we felt that moving it to the west end, the area that we're looking at, we're considering, you know, make sure that there's a buffer there and that it offers a lot more space than what currently is at the Public Works office area right now. And I think that we're able to achieve that. So the impact is meant to be as low as possible, which is why we're considering the west end. Oh, sorry, I just had one. Oh, the comments about the general plan for the city. So the thoughts of buying this property has actually been in the works for a while, and it was a couple years ago that the money was set aside financially for this to happen. There are needs with the current public works facility that are in bad need of repair and update, and I'll let Brandon go over what the public works building will be like. If you don't mind, I'm putting you on the spot there, but he can kind of elaborate what this public works building will look like and why the size of the acreage is what we're considering. And then, so when we were talking about the general plan, at the time, we weren't necessarily considering this particular area as something, we knew we were going West End, but we didn't know exactly, but it was always the intention to have public works moved as far as a few years ago, at least. And then I just want to comment too about the CUP of the soccer complex. I was on the committee that worked with that CUP, and that was actually something that not once did I consider when we were discussing his CUP was this property exchange. And I would not want my name associated in any shape or form with giving handouts in return of property. That CUP was very much just about what was in the soccer complex and what we felt we were legally able to do, given with what our code was at the time, and what can be determined as mitigation. Again, we had very specific concerns that we needed to mitigate, and that was where we came up with that. So I just want that clear that I understand the optics of that, and I was actually concerned about that in the following days where I realized these were going to come close together. But I want you to know that it was never even on my brain that there would be any sort of special treatment here in regards to the CUP, but I appreciate you bringing that up so I could clarify that. And I think that is everything. If you don't mind just elaborating, Brandon, a little bit on the building itself.
I can a little bit, but we have, as far as we've gotten on the building is to just try to establish a rough square footage of about what we think they might need. There is no funding at this point for the building itself. This is only just the first step in trying to purchase some property. So as far as what it would look like, we still need to go through the process of hiring an architect and going through the process that would establish the materials and things that would be used. Of course, the intent would be to make it attractive while yet trying to maintain some fiscal responsibility with that. That's about all I can elaborate thus far because it's not funded.
Well, I think you brought up a good point, just so that the public's clear, is that this is all that we have budgeted for. I mean, we couldn't put the cart before the horse and design something before we had a piece of property. And it's been a long process to even find the piece of property that would accommodate it in our budget. So, and we're well below our budget.
Yes, if I could just elaborate, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just would like to elaborate on that a little bit, that we evaluated, I think, 10 different locations and established, now I'm going off my memory, but I think 6 or 7 criteria areas, and placed priorities on those areas. Some of the highest being proximity to residential neighborhoods, access, those types of things, to try to minimize any kind of negative impact on the community. So we certainly didn't just target the west end. The properties were all over the city. We did need to keep it quiet, because if certain property owners found out that the city was looking, we were just concerned that there might be an effort to try to drive the price up, and to try to make sure that we were as diligent as we could be with tax dollars. We wanted to make sure that price was as low as possible. So I guess I just feel like that there has been a lot of work to go into this, and it certainly wasn't arbitrary to just randomly pick the property that we've selected at this point. I guess I'd also like to point out that what is before the council tonight is just a purchase contract that has a lot of subject twos, if you will. That's not the right word, but
we still need to do our due
contingencies
diligence.
that we still need to do our due diligence on. And if all of that pans out, then we would be looking to move forward in actually purchasing it.
Do you mind just elaborating on the size, you or Dave, the size of the lot? And since that was a common question in all of these comments.
You want me to take that? Or?
Yeah, go for it.
The hope, I think, with this, we did not target 12 acres. We targeted, as Councilman Halverson already mentioned, we targeted 5 to 8. In this particular location, 12 was actually available. And our hope with that is that with the price, it being a pretty competitive price, that it would allow us to provide even more buffer distance away from residential, the adjacent residents. We certainly aren't going to build anything more as far as like the public works building than we actually need. There's likely to be a lot of extra property that just won't necessarily be occupied by anything, but just provide more buffer and space. There are no other plans for the property other than the public works facility.
I'm going to challenge you on that last statement. Isn't there supposed to be a detention pond as part of this area?
Yes, on the other side of Harper Way.
North side of Harper Way.
North side of Harper Way.
Already owns
Yeah,
some
so that is part of
property
this
there
purchase. That is part of
adjacent
this
to this.
purchase. So there is another facility. So just to challenge that statement, there's no other exterior items than the detention basin and the public works building, plus the storage. Now I want to comment a little bit more about the comments made earlier about hazardous materials. I don't know of any hazardous materials. I understand there'll be salt, there'll be rock, crushed rock, They may have fuel for the pickups. I haven't heard if they're going to have any fuel storage. I think we normally get our fuel from other vendors to fuel our vehicles. I don't know if they're going to have stockpiles of oil. So I don't know what these hazardous materials that are being think of as a public works, but it is a yard where we can have our heavy equipment. There'll be storage of materials, garbage cans, signs, our snow plows, parking for those facilities, and the buffer. We also had to purchase the property to gain access to South Weber Drive. To elaborate a little bit more and try to get a word in here on the selection, this was not our first #1 priority project or land. I believe this was number 5 that we identified. We identified 12 properties, anywhere from sizes from 5 acres on up to 15 acres. This didn't happen for #1. #1 didn't want to sell. #2 was extremely overpriced. Same with #3, #4 didn't want to sell. The timing sucks. The comment made that the optics doesn't look very well. Yeah, that's a comment that comes back that there's still a distrust with the community and this council. We need to work through that. We didn't time the central or the conditional use permit to come when it did. We didn't time the negotiations with Mr. Park at the same time. Matter of fact, some of us felt that this acquisition was going to fall through based upon the hard stance we took with the conditional use permit discussion. We are above board. We're not getting any kickbacks. We're not looking to make a dollar on this. We do need to find a place for our public works people to work in a safe environment and a clean environment. 12 acres in and of itself, yeah, that is excessive, but it's not all going to be developed as a public works facility in yard as it's being purported out there.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, Dave.
if I may amend just one item that's been discussed on this. We evaluated a lot more than 10 to 12 properties. We shortlisted 10 to 12, but we looked pretty much the entire city when we looked at property that might work. We even looked at combining parcels that could potentially work. And it's been brought up about residential areas and things as far as the criteria that was used to evaluate. There were a lot of factors there. And ultimately, yeah, we shortlisted the 10 and ran through a detailed evaluation criteria, or 12, it might have been. And again, this wasn't the top choice. There were issues that happened that we got to this point, but ultimately we feel very comfortable as staff with this piece of property. We feel like there's a lot of opportunity and options. Having a little bit more land than just the minimum provides opportunities for the future that I think is a good thing for the city to have at the price. My personal feeling.
Just to add to my furthermore, this was not done in secret. We have been reporting upon this process. It has been part of public comment. No, we have not been specific as to which properties we're talking about because of the nature of trying to get the best and optimal cost or price for that property. So those are what the closed sessions were listed for that we've had. We're now here before an open session to discuss openly, this is the property we think is in the best interest of this community for this facility at this time. Some of the criteria that we seem to elaborate, I think that people may want to understand, access to South Weber Drive was one of those criteria. It wasn't the first criteria, it was a criteria. The terrain, the slope of the terrain being if it's a flat, ease of access to utilities. The further away from utilities, the higher the cost, the less it was rated. The easier the access to utilities, the more preferred that property was. Size was as a criteria. Things of this nature is what was looked at and ranked and moved forward on. So I don't know if that's appropriate, if we even had any notes from those discussions in developing that. That's something that could be shared so people understand that we weren't doing anything sneaky or behind the scenes. It would be interesting to see what was the #1 property, what was the #2 property. But this is what we ended up settling on.
We have that ranking sheet, what was evaluated, what properties were evaluated, and what criteria was used to evaluate them. We have all that information. Again, that's not hidden. That was just simply not published due to the negotiation process. So yeah, once we get to the end of acquiring property, I think in some ways that's a little bit premature. If something were to fall through with this for whatever reason through due diligence, I don't think we want number 6 and 7 and 8 to know that they're the next ones on the list, because again, that might drive up price on us. So we're trying to be smart with that as far as negotiation tactics, as well as being aware of the value of the dollar and the tax dollar specifically. So there's a lot of those factors, but ultimately all of that criteria was used, and we're to this point through a negotiation process.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd just like to say, I just wanted to echo what Wayne said, that this has been reported on and we've been working on it for years. So it's nothing that we were trying to hide or, keep quiet. We've been reporting on the need for Public Works to have a new building and looking at different locations. So I appreciate Wayne bringing that up for us.
All right. And I echo all the sentiments from up here. It has been a long, arduous process, very careful process. We don't take these large purchases lightly in our city. And so we have definitely been very careful with this. And so I appreciate everyone's comments. So then, if there are no more, do we have a motion to approve Resolution 21-02?
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 21-02, the contract for purchase of real property for a future public works facility.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further comment? Then we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman.
Aye.
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 The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. All right. Next item is Resolution 21-03, appoint 2021 Mayor Pro Tempore Angie Petty. When the mayor is unavailable to perform official duties, a pro tempore is assigned to act in that capacity. Each year, the mayor recommends one of the council members to serve in this position. Wayne Windsor served as mayor pro tem in 2019, and Blair Halverson served in 2020. This year, I recommend to the council that Councilwoman Angie Petty fulfill this duty. Are there comments or questions?
Mayor, I appreciate your recommendation of Angie Petty. I think she will do a fantastic job. And I make a motion to the council to appoint Angie Petty as Mayor Pro Tempore. Is that how you say it?
Tempore.
Tempore.
You can pronounce
Okay.
it different ways.
Mayor Pro Tem for 2021.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I don't believe we do. Oh, it is a resolution.
It is a
You're right.
resolution.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Lisa. We will have a roll call vote then, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 Okay, and the motion carries unanimously. And congratulations, Angie.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your faith in me. I hope I never have to use it.
All right. Next item is reports, new business. Is there any new business?
Mayor, I'd like to have the floor for a minute.
You may.
New business. It is timely with next Monday, the start of the calendar year 21 legislative season. Being that there are House bills, Senate bills, and joint bills currently on the docket, I think it would behoove this council to give staff two things. One, direction as to which bills we think the city ought to be tracking. And with that, I would encourage the mayor to put on the agenda for the legislative session a standing agenda item for a legislative update with regards to these House bills. I have a number of them here that I'm interested to have the city follow. Secondly, the city has the opportunity to have a legislative policy committee. It seems that some of us have been left off the Utah League of Cities and Towns list that were on it last year. I would ask that maybe this council consider whom they would like to be representing the city on that committee. I would recommend that at least one council member represent the city. Right now, it's a city manager, mayor, and a council member, or actually city manager, mayor, and we have one vacant slot. To my first statement, I think the House bills we need to be tracking, if you want to write these down, staff, I'm not going to go into what they're about. House Bill 43 talks about emergency procurement declarations. If that gets passed, we'll need to update our procurement policy. House Bill 63 talks about impact fee amendments. House Bill 82, single family housing modifications. It talks about accessory dwelling units, which is a big thing we need to pay attention to. House Bill 98, and I give Haley a lot of credit for bringing these up earlier. Sorry, Haley, you kind of spurred my thought on this earlier. House Bill 98, local government building regulations. House Bill 107, subdivision plat amendments, and House Bill 115, municipal boundary modifications are the ones that have come to my attention right now. There are others I'm personally interested in, but anyway, as a new business, I think those are some things I would like this council to consider at some point in time.
Wayne, would you say the last two House numbers again?
107, subdivision plat amendments. Sorry, she turned my mic. 107 and 115.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. I was trying to look on that website to see if you were still on there, because Wayne Windsor was the council member last year. But they don't have your name on there.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So, is this something that we want to?
I think that it's worth having the conversation right now about
Okay.
who would be on that legislative policy committee as a voting member. We have 3 seats, as Wayne said. So if we want to adjust who's that is, I think now's the right time, since the legislative policy committee began meeting yesterday.
Mayor, I'd make the recommendation that Wayne remain on that committee.
Okay.
I would second that.
Wayne, do you want to be on it still?
Yes.
I'm happy to represent the city, just so that the council understands, as part of my full-time job, I do this anyway for a local district. And knowing that we have another council member who is actively looking at the House bills and Senate bills, I would be happy to give them the opportunity to represent the city, although I'll be tracking these as well, but I will do at the pleasure of the council.
Do you want to do it?
I just have some questions on how it works. So they will vote and then contact the legislatures before they go into committee, and then before it goes to the floor, or what is the process of the timeline?
So what we're talking about here is our representation, our voting representation as a city for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, usually referred to as ULCT or the League. The League is the collection of cities throughout the state, and they are the lobby group essentially for cities up at the state legislature. So the process is that the Legislative Policy Committee has voting representation from each city, and they will be the voting body that steers how the league will lobby up on the Hill, whether they oppose bills, whether they support bills, whether they want to work with the legislators that are proposing them or whatnot. League staff is the one that actually is up there every day working with legislators and working with the leadership of the House and the Senate. And then during the session each Monday, the Legislative Policy Committee will get together and the league staff will go through the bills that they are tracking. There's also a website that they have that shows all of the bills that they are tracking and the stance that the policy committee has taken on those bills. And then each week they will discuss what those bills are, what they entail, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for cities, or if there were amendments, what that would look like. Just they are the go-between between the legislature and what's happening in cities and what we're hoping to get out. So at the end of the session, they also put out a summary of the session. They put an action item list for the cities so that we know if there are things that we need to take action on. If that's, for example, the bill that Wayne brought up about updating our procurement policy so that we're in line with state changes to state code. The Legislative Policy Committee's role is to make sure that the city's voice, the local voice, is shared with the league, so the league knows what they should be doing and saying with the legislators and lobbying there. So that's the process, how it works. Each city has 3 voting members. And then you can also have non-voting members. I'm not sure how many we're allowed to have. I haven't looked into that. I've only looked into the voting members, but we're allowed 3. And like was said, the mayor, myself, and Wayne filled those roles last year. And I'm not sure why Wayne's name is not on the list this year, but that should just be a phone call or an email or whoever it is that is selected tonight. Not to say that I have to be on it or the mayor necessarily has to be on it. Typically what I see is either city attorneys, city managers, mayors, or council members as those that represent their cities in the league LPC.
Okay. Thank you for that
And just
explanation.
for your information, Haley, the LPC meets, well, they don't meet, they meet electronically this year at noon on Monday till 1:30
Okay.
are their meetings.
I do appreciate that. Considering that, I am not sure I will be able to make it to those meetings, so I appreciate the consideration, but I think, Wayne, you will do a fantastic job, and I
All right,
will second Blair's motion if it's not too late. Oh, did Angie do it?
Already seconded that, so get in line, sister.
Okay, I third it.
Don't fight over me.
Okay, then if it's all right with Wayne, we'll stick with the same group. And we need to make sure that he's back on the list.
I
voting
will
members.
send communication right away to get him back as a voting member. I know the meetings I attended last year when there's a sign-in list when they were in person that you'd actually sign in and Wayne's name was there.
Okay.
And just to follow, can we make this a standing agenda item to the legislative session for the benefit of the council?
Yes, can you add that?
I'd like to
Yes,
see
that
that
is
too.
already in place, and we, as staff, we are planning on that, starting with our next meeting. We were waiting until the session started, but I think the fact that Wayne's bringing it up now probably highlights next year that we should have it a meeting or two before the session starts so that we can be prepared. So.
Well,
Mayor,
I
that's
had
all.
a page and a half of notes that I was going to quickly run through, but I think Wayne did a good job just introducing it. Just a couple of things to note. Some really shocking couple of bills, the HB 98, and I know Haley has put this on Facebook as well, by Representative Ray. An applicant can opt out of inspection and engage own licensed building inspector. It allows applicants to opt out of plan review and engage licensed building inspector to review plan. The city may require a zoning review, but may not charge more than $200. It prohibits design elements, interior and exterior. This is an alarming bill, and Representative Ray, according to the ULCT, seems quite unwilling to budge on his demands. So that's a big one, but there are a few that are a little bit crazy, in my opinion, and the ULCTs as well. So, all right, any other new business?
I just have one follow-up question. Did you say the bills at the ULCT, Dave, they have their tracking? Is that on their website?
Yeah, so ulct.org, one
Mhm.
of their menu items is advocacy, and then that submenu is bill tracking. And I just pulled that up actually.
And don't they send those out? I thought
Yeah,
we
so
got, I
every-
thought we got a copy. of
Yeah,
those.
so every Friday, the league also sends out a weekly update. It's called their Friday Facts.
Mhm.
And that typically will have information about LPC, information about bills that they're tracking and following, usually a link to their bill tracking website and things like that. So if members of the council are not receiving the Friday Facts emails, let me know, and I can, when I reach out, make sure that you're also included. Well, I'll just give them the list and say these all need to be on the Friday Facts email as well, so we can double check that at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
And anybody can go to that website and look at what the league is tracking, and yeah, that's open for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, any other new business? All right, we'll move to council reports. I just have one thing. Dave Sherry, our new planner, Rob Osborne, and I, actually Dave wasn't able to make it. His wife is sick today, so we interviewed 3 very strong planning commission applicants today, and we'll deliberate on those and recommend a new member to the council probably at our next meeting. I'm assuming that's when it will be. So thank you. Councilman Windsor, would you like to report?
Thank you. I do like to report the City Code Committee has been meeting through the holidays. We actually met today, and we are happy to report. Can I get the touchdown sign down there? You know, success. We actually have completed our second draft of the definitions to Title 10. And so with that, staff are going to clean it up and present a red line version, track changes, if you will, and a clean version to the Planning Commission. The hope is to get it to them next week so they have at least 3 weeks to review and have a meaningful discussion at their February's Planning Commission. Meanwhile, the Code Committee will now move forward with applying those definitions as best we can. We're going to start with the commercial highway, commercial and commercial recreational zones, probably not in that order, and hopes to move forward. The process, we understand, this isn't going to be piecemealed resolutions. The process is once the Planning Commission is happy with what they have and they make a formal recommendation to the council will then review that, discuss it, but we won't take action on it. We'll just hold it in abeyance until we've got all of Title 10 through the same process. Once we've got all of Title 10 updated, revised, public hearings, recommended from the Planning Commission to council, council has had a chance to review it, discuss it, then we'll go through one resolution to adopt all of 10. I believe that's what we discussed today. Our concern is if we start adopting in piecemeals, you're going to have some pieces that don't align with the old pieces. And so to be consistent, we're trying to be very thorough. And this is the hot button we understood of the city and of the council. After which we will address the council again with regards to our priorities. The committee has made some suggestions of some notes as to one things we want to address, new ordinances that, for instance, noise was one that came up, panhandling, things of that nature. We need to see what those priorities are with the remainder of the code. Again, this is not a one and done. This is probably a committee that's going to be working on this for the coming years.
Thanks for doing it.
You didn't know what you signed up for.
I liked Wayne's imagery there for just in my own mind of having Indiana Jones with a bag of sand ready to just swap out ordinance real quick and get the whole thing done at the same time. So at least that's the image in my head when you described it. Somebody else probably thought differently.
All right. Is that it?
Would you like more? I can make things up, but no, I'm good. Thank you,
I
ma'am.
think we're okay. Councilwoman Petty.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to report that and thank Brandon Jones, has been working really hard on our park bidding process. So we're getting ready. He's preparing documents so we can get bids out so we can start construction at Canyon Meadows West CMW, as we're calling it for right now. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Councilman Soderquist.
I don't have anything new. We discussed the audit, and just again, a thank you to Mark and the crew for their efforts with our financial efforts within the city.
All right, thank you. I was just going to say, we created, well, we didn't really create, but we have a committee that's added to our list of committees for this year, and that's the Audit Committee. Do you want to just explain that, Dave?
Yeah, in city code, it specifically calls out an audit committee. And Mac and I have talked about the role of that committee and how to utilize them better moving forward. That is on the list now of committees, so that's not lost. I think that was a committee that kind of was lost at some point in the process, and so we want to bring that back. In terms of how they could have been involved in this last audit, if they would have been a functioning committee, I think the idea, they don't necessarily have a role in determining what the audit says or things like that. It's just a chance to review some of the items that are brought up, the findings, for example, and have a chance to work with staff on that as it goes through the process, rather than just at the end get a report, this is how it went. Our city code specifically calls out an audit committee that would have a chance to be involved in that. The role is not defined in city code, just the title. And so we need to talk through what that role would be and how we think it could function the best way possible. But that is now one of the committees that is identified.
Just to interject real quickly, the Audit Committee has been a subset of the Finance and Administration Committee. For the last 3 years, the Finance and Administration Committee has reviewed the audit before bringing it forth to this council. This is the first year that has not happened.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Alberts.
So the PR committee met and our website is underway, and I think everything is still going as planned and no hiccups so far.
Yeah, so we are currently on track. I am happy to say that. We are on track for our go live date toward the end of January. We met our target deadline for design, and now we are in process of actually migrating content to get the content into the new design. So they are in process making that happen. By the beginning of next week, we should be able to, as staff and probably the PR committee, have a set of eyes on that work to make sure that all the content is migrating properly. And then right now, the date is by the end of the week of the 18th. So the 22nd, January 22nd is when we hope to go live or right in that neighborhood.
Yep. So exciting stuff. We've had our fingers crossed, and so far everything's going smoothly, which is a little surprising, I think.
You mean
Knock on.
recently? Things have gone smoothly.
Yeah, recently it's been going very smoothly. Can I just say, since I started working on it, it's been going very smoothly. I'm just teasing.
Noted.
Well played. Well played.
We also discussed the YCC is going to do the newsletter. So Quinn will finish off Councilman's Corner for the newsletter this month. And then the YCC will actually be taking a section of the newsletter as a citizen spotlight. They will choose a citizen and ask them questions, get to know them, and it will be something that they'll be doing monthly. Did you want to report on YCC?
I'm happy to have you report on my CC.
Okay.
Did I miss something?
We just have our YCC Mock City Council next Thursday. They will be having, everybody has a role. They'll be setting up their own mock city council, and they will take a vote for what they're going to be discussing. So that should be pretty exciting. And then can we just get these mics checked and see what's going on?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all for me.
I'm sure that was on his list
I'm
already.
pretty sure.
After the first time it started humming at us. Like,
Thank you, Haley. Councilman Alverson.
I'm here. It actually seems like it's been a long time. Would have reported on this by now, but the Planning Commission met on December 17th, and a couple notable items. One was mentioned in public comment. The lofts had a public hearing and action on a preliminary site plan approval, and the preliminary site plan and everything was approved. That does not come to council. Only the final site plan and improvements and development agreement come to council. So if you do have comments, the Planning Commission would appreciate them beforehand so that they can address any of those comments or concerns. So please take a minute, well, more than a minute, and review Planning Commission notes and on YouTube as well. It's easier to listen to that way. But it definitely, I think it would be a good thing for all of us to listen to so that they have those comments from us before it comes to us for final.
Blair, if you mind, just to follow up on that, they have now turned around and submitted their final plan. And so staff just received that today. We need to check and make sure all of the items that are required for a complete final submittal are there. If they are, then it will first go through staff review in order to prepare, memos for the Planning Commission. And so that process of final is starting.
Thank you. The other notable item was there was a final site and improvement plans for the approved for the Style Street Studios. That's the over by Burley Burger and Little Caesar. And so I think that'll be moving forward as well.
Does that come to us?
I don't believe because of the size that does not come
No,
to
it
us.
does not.
So anyway, and it looks very nice, and I think it's a good project. So other than that, I think that's it.
Do we know anything further on the copy shop? Why they haven't started?
That was asked in the meeting as well. And go ahead.
No.
I think it's just been sitting there. There was nothing. They asked a question and they asked it of Barry at the time, and he didn't have any further information either.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dave.
Follow up or report on the grocery study that we talked about in a previous meeting. That is underway. It's typically a 4 to 6 week study. So we anticipate getting that back toward the end of January at some point. So that is in process as we speak. All the other things that I have been working on and been involved in have come up in some form or fashion already tonight. So I don't have anything new.
Is your wife feeling better?
Not really, no. Yeah, I have learned in the last 48 hours that I'm a really bad mom, which is probably no surprise to anybody else.
She did get tested, and
yeah, so there were multiple members of our family that were tested. We had cold symptoms and all negative. So we're just dealing with normal sickness stuff. But when we called the doctor and had to do the telehealth visit, the doctor said one thing that she's learned through this whole process is she doesn't know what COVID looks like anymore. That she's like, I would bet money that this type of person had COVID and it wasn't. And this other person who I never would have thought their symptoms did lead to COVID. And so the only way to know is to get tested. And so they had us tested and we were negative. So hopefully she gets better soon. And I'm just going to keep trying to fulfill that role as poorly as I did. But yeah.
Good luck to you both.
Yeah. All right. Sherry, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, Brandon?
I don't have anything other than what's already been reported.
Okay. Jamie, did you have
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right. Lisa?
Nothing from me.
What? Oh.
Michelle.
Oh, Michelle. Yeah. Michelle. No? Okay. Mark, did you have anything else to add?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. All right. Then if we're done with that, I will now entertain a motion to go on a closed session per UCA section 52-4-2051D to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property. You have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll move to closed session.
Aye, me, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're now in open session. Do I have a motion to?
No. Have some follow-up.
We would like an update on the cobblestone.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
Oh, are we live? We're in open.
Open.
Yeah, so on last Monday, I believe it was the final day for Cobblestone Manor to appeal the court's decision. And we did get official notice that they are appealing that decision. It doesn't change the initial court's ruling in our favor. That ruling stands until and unless an appellate court would make a change to that. So The process for that, I sent an email to the council so that you would know that process. It is a long timeline with a very nebulous time for when we would get an official ruling there. So the process is that initial briefs have to be filed, kind of opening statements essentially, and then there's a back and forth between both sides as far as response to those statements, ultimately leading to arguments in front of the court, and then who knows how long the court actually responds and puts a ruling down. So the attorneys we talked to said that after that court date, it could be anywhere from a couple of months if somehow the stars aligned, up to a couple of years. That these things could be years before a final decision. So ultimately, the appeal is kind of now a secondary issue of what's going on there at the property. There are other issues that are still happening real time that staff is trying to take care of. One of the ideas that's come up recently is another follow-up meeting with the neighbors, so that they can know exactly what we're doing, what steps are being taken. This is not a dead issue on any front necessarily. The appeal was the first, that issue was the first thing we tackled, was the most immediate that needed to be resolved. Again, we did get a favorable court ruling there, and now that is an issue that just kind of is sailing out there based on the initial ruling and our attorney's feelings on the matter. I think that we're in a very, very strong position there. I personally would be very surprised if there was a change on the ruling through the appeal. Of course, there's that process to play out, but the other items are now first and foremost in what we're tackling, and that has to do with business licensing, application, and other code violations. And so staff is actively and aggressively pursuing those things.
If they lose the appeal, do they have to pay our attorney fees?
Unfortunately, no. That the system is set up that both sides pay for their own attorney's fees.
Nice.
I did ask that question specifically,
Okay.
and it's not an option.
Do you have a ETA on meeting with the neighbors and when that would take place? Would it be after?
We have not reached out to them to set that up, but
Okay.
the attorneys all said that they're willing. We, of course, as staff are willing. It's a matter of just reaching out and scheduling that, but steps have not been taken to schedule that meeting yet.
Okay.
With some of the decisions that we have to make in the next few weeks, I think I would prefer to wait on the meeting with neighbors until after we consider whether actions need to be taken against the property owners. I think otherwise we risk making us and the neighbors witnesses, and none of us want to be that.
Okay.
Good point. Thank you.
And relating to that, do you have any update on Pleasant Grove's appeal?
No, again, it's kind of tied up in that same long process. So
Okay.
yeah,
Talking
no
about
word
the TUF?
on the transportation utility fee. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Were we going to formalize 21-03?
Yeah.
What? We didn't know if we actually stated the number on the motion for
Oh, do we need to?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Michelle, when I did the motion for Mayor Pro Tem, did I include the resolution number?
Sorry, it took me a minute to get off mute. I believe I'd have to go back and listen to it. I can go back and check. Or do you want to just,
Yeah,
what would you like me to do?
Amend my
To
motion?
do that, if
I think it was clear what the motion was relating to. We know which item on the agenda we were discussing. When that came up, all of the motions today were passed for the resolution, so I don't think there's any
reason?
question as to what occurred and what was passed.
Okay.
All right.
Also, question for you guys really quickly. Who made the motion to, it didn't pick up, the sound didn't pick up. Who made the motion to go into closed session?
Councilmember Windsor.
I have Windsor seconding the motion.
I think it was Blair.
Councilmember Halverson.
Sure.
All right, other than that, that's all. I think I got everything, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.